Good afternoon. Thank you guys for joining the class today. I hope it's pretty interesting because we are going to talk about the front-end design. So I already created the different tasks we will have today. I've done it yesterday, and basically you will see how to do these things. And let's get started then. So last time we have created one project that was an Angular project. And that time, the Angular project had a app component and also an app module, but I have added some more components and I will discuss the new structure. First, let me start with telling you what I have changed. So first of all, let's check the app component HTML file. As you see now, it's quite empty. So last time we had some code here, and it showed us a kind of website, a web page, but I removed the code from this component HTML, and I will tell you why. So since the app component HTML has a very important thing in this whole structure, I don't prefer if we have those detailed code here, I would put those code actually into other components. So the only thing we would need here is the router outlet tag. So the router, we will talk about the router, what that is, how it behaves, and stuff like that. So the only thing you have to do is actually just to insert the router outlet tag. This is needed because when we want to jump from one website to the other website or one web page to the other web page, this is because of this router. So in Angular, if we don't have any router, unfortunately, we cannot jump from one page to the other page, from one component to the other one. So that's why this router outlet is needed here. So the next thing, let's check the app component TS file. Actually, I removed, the title. We had the variable here, the title variable. But we don't need that here right now. So I just put it into another component. And let's check the module TS file, the app module TS file. I made some amendments here. The most important one that I brought the router module here with an import statement. So I just created an import. That means I will import the router module from Angular/router into the app module, right? And what else do I need to do? Actually, I have to put also in the imports the router module for root because here in routing, it's very important that we determine the path and also the component, the corresponding component. So what does this really mean? You will see it when I present the application. And let me show you now because probably it's easier to understand what's going on. So if we see just an empty path, it refers to the home component. So the what do we call a home component? Home component is like a component onto which the user jumps when the user calls the website, the web page. So that's always the first one the user will see, right? And then we always mark it with an empty tag. I mean, with an empty stuff here, and then we will just put the home component name. And then there's another path, which is the entry path. And with the entry path, we use the entry component and an update path, and we use the update component here, right? But let me show you how it works. So here's the very simple website I have created. I didn't want to use any complicated or very fancy because in this course, the most important thing is that you guys see how the data come to the front end and how the data leave the front end and then goes into the back end and through the back end to the database. So if I click on the view all entries, you will see a hard-coded table. And when you jump to a new one, if you click on the create a new entry, you see now you jumped to the entry component. That's what I have showed you here, that actually we have the entry component, and this will jump to the entry path. So the entry path is this one here, you can see in the address bar. Let's get back to the main page. And when we view all entries and you click on the update button here, this will jump to the update component. And the reason for jumping there is because in the code, actually we put these statements here. We match the path with the component. That's how the system knows how it's matched to the component. And the other thing which I told you before, we put the router outlet into the app component.html file. Okay, so these are the most important modifications. So first the app module TS and the app component TS and the app component HTML. Actually, in the component CSS, there is nothing. So that's quite empty at the moment. Okay, so what was the next step I had to do? The next step actually was that here's a components folder. I have created this here under the app folder, so it is very important, and I would highlight that it's extremely important that this should be in the app folder, right? Because that's where these components can be interpreted. So how we do that? We right click on app, and then we say new folder, and then you can create the components folder. And here in the components folder, the way you can put some new components, when you right click here and you say new file, and actually you can put new files, but that's not the way we have done that here. So the way we have done that is actually that we will go to the components folder in the command line. Let me show you. So now here we are in the editor, in the code editor, and this is not the command line. So the command line is here when I call the command line, and actually I type in a control C and yes, and then I will stop the application. So when I stop the application, you should not see the front end anymore. So when I click on refresh, basically the application is stopped. You will see nothing there. You see this site can be reached because we stopped the application. And what do I need to do now in the command line? In the command line, basically we have to come to this folder, to the components folder. Right now we are in the sample front-end project, and first is the src folder. So let's type in cd and src. So we will come to the source folder, and then one more time to cd app, and then we come to the app folder. You can see now we are inside the app folder. And then there is one more layer, the components. So let's type in the cd and components, and then we come to the components folder. We are in the components folder at the moment. And now comes the most important thing. Basically, we have to type in an Angular command, which is the nggc, and we have to give a name, right? Let's give it test. What is this? This is actually an Angular command with which we can create a new component in this folder where we are standing. So ngg stands for generate, and C stands for component. So it means ng generate component, and that's the name of the component. So that means when I hit enter, that basically the command is running, and we should be able to see a new component here, which is the test component. That's what we have created. And when we come to the test component TS file, here you see the name we have given in the command line. So that's the so-called test component. That's how I created the entry component, the home component, and the update component. Of course, the name was not test here, but here was entry, here was home, and here was update. Okay, so you guys now saw how to create a new component. So since I don't need this test component anymore, let me delete that. So I right click and I say delete, and then I confirm the deletion. So actually I have deleted this component, but I can see there is some mistake here. because the app is red and it shows me where the problem is. It's in the app module TS. That's why it's red. So I can see I must remove this line because it refers to the test component, which is not there anymore. I have just deleted that before. So let me remove this line. And I also remove here in the declaration section this test component. And after that, this should be actually all right. Yes, you see there is no mistake anymore. So we can click on save all, and then the project is all right then. Okay, so that's how you guys can add some new components. So first, let's see the home component. You know, the home component is the one we always see when the user comes to the website. So here, let's get back to the sample frontend folder with the cd dot dot, and then one more time cd dot dot, and then one more time cd dot dot, right? And then let's start up the application with ng serve. So the application is starting up, and then you can see the main page. That is actually the home component. So when we refer to the main page here, that's going to be always the home component. And then let me explain what is in the home component, why you see that, what you see there. So if I refresh now, I should be able to see the home component, which is this one. And okay, let me explain why you see this and this picture and this line, and you know, why you see the two buttons and what's happening when we click on this button. Here's the code, and here is first of all the home component HTML, which gives us the layout of the web page. So first of all, you see the welcome and the title. The title is a variable name, and these two brackets is actually the interpolation. It's called interpolation. So the question is, where do we get this title? Where is the value set? Actually, the value is set here under the home component.ts file. So here you can see in the home component.ts, we give a value to the title variable. And here in the HTML file, we will refer to the title variable. We call the value of the title variable by giving these two curly brackets here. So these brackets here, and then that's why you can see the value there. So when I click here, you can see this is the value of that variable. So that's why you see the welcome to sample frontend. Okay, what's the next step? Here is the image tag. So that's the image. That's why we see this image here. Okay, and then below the image, actually there is a line. This is a kind of label. So if we come here, we can see here data listed from our sample database in a H2 tag. And here we have a class reference to position. What is this? The position is part of the CSS file. So actually I declare with the dot position a CSS class, and I determine the different arguments, what it should look like. So if I come back here and I see here that this so the H2 tag refers to the position class. That's why the background color is cyan, and the text align is center. So that determines that one. And you can see some more classes I determined here, I defined here. And here in the HTML file, I always refer to those like the position button or position. That's why you see this layout there. Okay, so if someone asks you, what is this CSS file good for? The CSS file is good just to determine or define actually the background color, the layout, the margin, and the positioning. So that's the place where you actually define these things. Okay, the next one is the button. Here we have actually two buttons, the view all entry and the create new entry. So if we click on this button, here's an event handler. So it's a click event handler. That means if someone clicks on this button, this should happen. This is a function, right? But we don't know what is in this function. We just call this function. Where do we find this function? How do we find out what is in this function? If we jump to the home component TS, the TypeScript file is always the place where we define these functions, and we add some code into the function. Here you see, here are the functions. This is one function, this is the other function, and this is the third function. And actually, if you come back here, you can see here we call the set condition true, which is here below. Set condition true. It means if someone clicks on this button, that the condition variable, which is false at the beginning, will be true. And why is this important? Because if it will be true, then this table can be visible only if someone clicks on the button and the condition will be true, right? That's why we are calling the set condition true function to make it true. And if it's true, then the table will be visible. Let's see if it's correct. So I will click on the view all entries, and wow, here's the table because the variable became true and the table will be visible. These are not values from the database. These are only hard-coded values. I put in the code right here. So you can see these are only hard-coded values, but next time, at the next class, you will see how we call the data directly from the database onto the front-end side. Yes, that's what you have to know about the home component. So we have discussed, the buttons, the event handler, and actually we have also discussed the CSS classes here, which I used, and also the interpolation. It's quite a lot of things, for a beginner especially, because the beginner has to know what's an interpolation, what's a CSS class, actually what's a click event, and what's an ngIf directive. So basically these are quite a lot of things. Don't worry if you don't understand immediately. Okay, let's see the next stuff. So here, this is the home component. We know it that we call on the localhost 4200 port on our local machine. But now I want to navigate to another component. So if I click on the create a new entry, you see now we jump to the entry component. So the entry component is here in our code, and the entry component looks like this. I have created a button there, and behind the button there is a function, so with a click event. So here is the function, the redirect to home. I'm calling the router, and the router navigate, and then the slash means it refers to the home component. That's why it will jump to the home component. Let's check if it's true. So we are talking about this button here on the left hand side. So back to main page, and we are here in the main page at the moment, right? So that's why, because the router takes it back to the main page. Okay, now, so if I come back here, you see here is the image and the title again, like in the other page. And what is important is this form, right? Because we are using a form. So basically, this is just a simple form, and the way how we are using it, that we just use the label and the input field, and that's why when you come here you can see these fields, and then you can enter different values into these fields, and finally you will be able to submit and send it to the server what you would like. Okay, that's all. And then the CSS, in the CSS there is only one class, the position class, and actually we are using the same layout, the same structure in the update component here. So when you come back here and then you want to see the table again, and you click on update, right? It will jump to the update component. So it's not the entry component. It looks like the same, but it's another component. It's called update component, and you see exactly the same form. So you next time you will see why we need two different forms for update and for entry. So actually these files look like exactly the same. So you don't have to worry about this. So that's exactly the same like the entry one. So that's what I created yesterday when I prepared for this class. And you guys should practice. You should create new components. You should add some code to the HTML file, to the TypeScript file, and test how it works. You should do some click events and stuff like that. Okay, I think that's the subject we wanted to cover today. How to create the design, how to jump from one component to the other component, and how to connect these components. And next time we will see, how to bring the data from the database and just put the data here on the front end side. So I hope you enjoyed the class today, and hoping that you will join also at the next class. So I wish you a wonderful day and see you next time. Bye bye.